and here we go. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us. Give me just one moment. So as you know, we will be, as we mentioned on the flyer, we'll be offering some translation services, and we'll be offering Spanish language. And I'm grateful to my colleague, our colleague Cecilia Rodriguez. She's going to be speaking in the designated language. Her audio is transmitted to any participants who will have selected that language translation. So at the bottom of the screen, you should see an icon that appears as a small globe. And that will allow for seamless communication between you all, between Cecilia and you all. Full disclosure, Zoom does also offer translation services in subtitle form. However, we cannot vouch for the accuracy, and we have not found it to be particularly accurate. So that's just full disclosure. And then finally, just so you know, any content that you all want to share with us or you place in the chat box will be going to us, the hosts and co-hosts of the meeting. So we will be able to see your questions and comments. And if there are any other questions, we will have time at the very, very end for some Q&A. But in the meantime, I will be collecting any comments as they come in. And that's all.
So many people registered for this meeting. We had to turn the interactive chat function off, or we felt we would lose track of the questions. So that's why that's the reason you can't chat with each other in the chat.
And now, yes,
Cecilia.
And now to Cecilia, she's going to repeat all of what I said about translation in Spanish, and then I will add her as a translator.
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to keep my camera on for a little bit, but I'm having some difficulty. So I'm going to turn off my camera and then translate in Spanish. Hoy estamos ofreciendo servicios de traducciones en español para que alguien que quiere solo en español puede cambiar su icon que tiene el mundo abajo, lo puede cambiar en español. Y cuando lo cambia en español, solo me van a oír a mí. También, si quiere los subtítulos de español, no creo que es correctamente, no lo estamos usando, pero sí está ahí para que lo pueda usar. Pero si tiene también una pregunta, hay un Q&A icon que le puede poner ahí y me lo manda a mí. Gracias.
All right.
Okay,
Thank
Summer.
you, Cecilia. Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer, for mentioning the crosstalk feature being disabled. The other piece of technology I just wanted to mention is that we're going to be using a tool called Menti. Some of you may have used it before. If you've ever participated in a virtual public meeting like this, you may be familiar with it. It does require you to have a second browser open. So the easiest way to do this is either use a different device from the one that you're using now, like your phone or your tablet, but you can simply use another browser. You just have to click in between, your Zoom. So you might want to grab your phone, and you can just open up the browser. You can toggle in between, and we'll be dropping links to the Menti in the chat box. So you'll have an opportunity to just click it and go, or you can use your device, hold it up to the screen when the appropriate time comes. All right, back to you, Jennifer.
Okay. I really, really want to thank both Summer and Cecilia, because they are going to extra lengths tonight in order to make this meeting as accessible and successful as possible. That being said, let's get started. I want to take a minute to tell you a little bit about myself, about Loyola, and about this campus plan. So first of all, my name is Jennifer Clark. I'm the Associate VP for neighborhood initiatives. I had to think for a minute. We're formerly known as community relations at Loyola University. I've been here for 23 years. That means I saw Loyola through the process of community planning with regard to campus planning in 2004, in 2014, and now we're doing it again in 2024. And honestly, the technology tools are making it easier and easier and better. So I'm grateful that all of you are here today. Loyola University Chicago, for those of you that are somewhat new to working with Loyola, we first opened our doors in Rogers Park in 1870. And at that time, this area was mostly farmland and the elevated train tracks. I'm going to share my screen because I have found some photos that I think are fun to share. First of all, this is the Menti login that Summer was talking about. If you have your phone handy and you're good with technology, you can just scan that QR code. Or if you're using a different browser, oops, you can log into www.menti.com and enter this code. As Summer said, she's going to drop it in the chat, so it will be easy for people to find. Oops. I think I shared my screen inappropriately, so I'm going to do it again. Let's do it this way. There we go. The slides are just going really slow. This is the photo I wanted to share with you. This is a picture of Devon Avenue. Some of you may have seen it circulating around social media. This is Devon Avenue at Rockwell, looking east. So behind these women walking is looking east towards the lake. In what year was this picture taken? 1914. So I thought this was interesting. Like I said, when Loyola opened its doors in 1870, this is what most of Rogers Park and Edgewater looked like. This picture is from the Digital Research Library of Illinois. The second picture that I'm attempting to show, it's going really slow, I apologize, is also from the Digital Research Library of Illinois. It's a little bit further east, so we're still in 1914, but now we're at Devon Avenue looking east from Western Avenue. I don't really see Devon Avenue here, but essentially this is the intersection of Devon and Western. I myself am wondering if that fire hydrant is still there. To me, it's strange to think that when these pictures were taken, Loyola had already been operating the Lakeshore campus for 60 years. So the campus that you know at Loyola was operating just east of here 60 years before this picture was taken. This next picture is a fun one. Come on. This is the intersection of Devon, Sheridan, and Broadway. This was taken 20 years into the future in 1937. This is what our most famous intersection, Devon, Sheridan, Broadway, the intersection of Edgewater, Rogers Park, and Loyola looked like in 1937. I don't think anything about this intersection today is the same, except we're very near to the L tracks and we're at the entrance essentially to Loyola's Lakeshore campus. And then this final image, come on, final image. This is Loyola's Lakeshore campus. As far as I know, it's the earliest known campus plan. This rendering was what the Jesuit order intended Loyola's Lakeshore campus to look like. If you look in the upper left quadrant, you can see the train and the train tracks in the exact same place as they are today. And there's two buildings here on campus, Dunbach Hall and Cudahy Hall, kind of right in the center, that still exist on our campus today. But other than that, everything has changed. I'm going to stop the share for a minute. And I just think that's fun because I think what it illustrates is that we cannot ever separate the history of Rogers Park and Edgewater from the history of Loyola. For the last 150 years, our campus and our neighborhoods have grown up together through all the good times and the bad, the positive improvements and the negative downturns. This is what it means to be an anchor institution in Chicago. Many of you have heard the phrase anchor institution. It means that we don't pick up and move our headquarters when another state offers a better tax incentive. It means that an anchor institution grows, changes, and develops alongside its neighbors. So tonight, what we're here to do is talk about how Loyola is going to grow, change, and develop over the next 10 years in a comprehensive campus plan. This is a plan for the physical built environment. It's not a programming plan. That'd be another conversation. I already told you that I was here. I'm reading my notes. I was here 20 years ago when Loyola started this in 2004. I really want to thank the administration at Loyola, some of whom are on this call, because with the new technology available to us, they have allowed me and the technology have allowed us to get together with the community earlier than we ever have in the past. We're able to be more inclusive than we've ever been able to be. This Zoom setting, for example, while not perfect, allows for some people who are still at work, who just stayed at work an extra hour in order to participate in this meeting. Some parents are home cooking dinner or taking care of their kids or getting the kids in the bathtub and listening with their earbuds in. And I just think that is such a better way to launch a meeting such as this than just the people who are able to come out in person to an evening meeting on a weekday. So I'm grateful for that. Also, we're able to engage with you earlier than we've ever been able to, because this is the very beginning, the kickoff to what is going to be months of back and forth. But we'll be able to communicate with you in real time through newsletters, through social media, and through an interactive website that we'll introduce you to at the end, where all of you can give us all of your ideas any moment that you have them, in the middle of the night, 7 days a week. Whenever you're thinking about what your vision for the community is, you can drop it into that website. You don't have to wait until the next meeting and hope that you're able to attend. So before we go too much further in the Loyola plan, which my colleague Patrick is going to talk to you about, I want to do another thought exercise. So for those of you that were able to access the Menti website, I'm going to ask you to pull up that browser, click on it. And once you have your browser open with menti.com in it, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We will try to catch up to you. But I'm going to ask you to enter one word that describes why you love this community. I'm going to put that in there in a second. I'm toggling. This is what it looks like. As soon as you start entering your words, we should start to be able to see them popping up. Perfect. This is called a word cloud for those of you that haven't done it before. In this word cloud, words that are repeated by many people that come up often will get bigger and more prominent. We're doing this because it's a shared experience that's unique to this particular gathering of people. Many of you know there's going to be another kickoff meeting exactly like this one 2 weeks from today. And that word cloud will probably be a little bit different because it's unique to the people that are on this meeting right now. We're going to save this word cloud. So keep adding all the words you want to it because we're going to save it where you're going to see it in social media. You're going to see it in our electronic newsletters. You're going to see it on our websites. This sets the stage not only for what Loyola's goals are, but it helps us to understand why you all came to participate. Diversity seems to be the biggest word. Community, the lake, diverse again, Archie's, walkable, beachfront, lakefront, the location. It's beautiful. Like I said, we're going to save this and you're going to see it come up. Don't close your browser for the Menti. We're going to come back to it a little while later. I'm just going to leave it up. Next, I want to tell you a little bit about campus planning and why it's important to Loyola right now. As many of you have probably heard, Generation Z and Generation Alpha, who are today's teenagers and children, are smaller in numbers than the millennials that have come before them for the last 20 years. Fewer of them will be graduating high school, and fewer of them will be planning to attend college. We at Loyola have known this was coming for a long time, and we've been planning for it. But then the pandemic came, and these same kids, who are fewer in numbers, experienced in some cases up to 2 years of virtual school. And that put them not only academically behind their predecessors in college, but also many of them, and you've probably seen this in the news, are struggling socially and emotionally. We're seeing more and more kids coming into college who in past generations probably would never have even gone to college. So it's great that they're here, but as a university, we have to start to change. And that's why this plan is important. We've known this was coming for a long time. The purpose of this planning is to prepare the campus to create success for those future students without ever stopping the operations of the university 12 months out of the year. So we need to begin to think about changing the way that we teach, changing the way students live, and providing for those academic accommodations, health, and mental wellness in ways that we've just never had to do before, but we're adapting. Preparing for the next generation of students in some cases has been nearly impossible for other colleges and universities. Right here in Chicago, many of you have probably seen or heard in the news, just in the last 6 months, both Columbia College and DePaul University have been on the news because they were teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. Robert Morris College and Roosevelt University merged into one a few years ago. And John Marshall Law School was assumed into UIC. Kendall Culinary College became part of National Louis University. We at Loyola do not intend to have any of these crises happen to us. We've been planning and budgeting to continue to be an independent Jesuit Catholic university, serving primarily first-generation college students, primarily from Illinois and the surrounding region. We are not willing to sacrifice our commitment to first-generation students, Chicago public school students, Pell-eligible students, or undocumented students. Finally, I pointed out that Loyola is a Jesuit and Catholic university. And for those of you who are not as familiar with Loyola, we are one of the largest of 27 Jesuit schools in the United States. We have approximately 10,000 undergraduate students who live, work, study, and play right here on the 52.5-acre campus in Edgewater and Rogers Park, 10,000 students. We're confident that we'll be able to remain at this level of traditional enrollment for decades to come. So this plan, like I said, is not about growing the university, but it is about changing the way we offer programming to students in order to set them up for future success. Okay, I see the word cloud is continuing to get bigger and bigger, and I appreciate that. Keep adding in your words or drop them in the chat so we can capture them and add them after the meeting. Next, I'm going to introduce you to my colleague, Patrick Brawley. He's the Assistant Vice President for Facilities and University Architect. Over the last year, Patrick has done a needs assessment of Loyola students, faculty, staff, and alumni. He's also researched benchmarks for similar sized universities to determine what needs are most pressing for Loyola over the next 10 years. If you have questions about the presentation that Patrick's giving, please drop them in the chat and we will try to address them. I do want to say, though, that we might not be able to answer all of the questions as they come up. And we probably won't be able to answer questions about specific streets or specific intersections or specific buildings, just because there's so many people on this meeting. But if you have very specific questions and you're able to, please stay on the line after the meeting ends, and I will stay and be happy to talk to you more one-on-one about what your specific questions are. After Patrick's presentation, we're going to discuss the tools and give you the link to the website so that you can continue to provide input over the coming months. We're going to be collecting data in several different forms. Over the next 6 to 10 weeks, we're going to gather a healthy diagnostic of all of the local area priorities, and then those results will be shared back out to the community in the fall. Patrick, I realize you can't share your screen until I stop, so I'm going to stop and then turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. And good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Really exciting. I know some of you we have spoken with previously as we've done some engagement just with folks immediately around us, and really happy that we're expanding this conversation to a larger group. So hopefully you see on your screen now, what I have done is I'm actually on our webpage for the campus plan. So everybody can get to this. This information is out there. The address is right up there if you want to get there. I'm not looking to surf through the whole thing, but there's a number of information, as Jennifer's saying. There's some FAQs on there, questions you may have that may already be answered, that you have in your head. So those may be there. What I wanted to really talk about was more so our analysis. What's behind the reason? Why are we doing this? We're not just in the mode of going and building something or taking something down. We're basing it on our needs and what our input is. So I'm just really walking through this list that's here, a number of inputs, as Jennifer was talking to, a lot of interviews, a lot of assessments. So we've got qualitative and quantitative analyses that we have had completed as part of this study. So we're kind of marrying and balancing both of those. And really, so we're looking at the whole thing, not just the physical campus, but as Jennifer and Summer have stated, and Cecilia, it's about the community. And Loyola doesn't stop at the curb line. We know we're out in the community, and that's where we're looking to best understand how we can shape this future. So we went through the data inputs, looking at traffic and mobility, classroom, which is a huge part of this, and lab utilization. And to speak to the classroom, I want to touch back. Jennifer talked about the change in the demographics and the population, and that's really a drive. So some of you may be saying, okay, you told me the numbers were dropping and it's not there. Why do I see growth? Well, it's not that they're dropping. They are. That just means for us, we have a greater competition to go and retain and attract those students, those faculty, and those staff. So we really need to be best in class. And as Jennifer mentioned, that's where we're looking at our peer benchmarking. What is it that we are competing against in terms of the higher education market? We have some immediate peers directly in the Chicagoland area, but it's a national market, obviously. It's a huge export for the United States. A lot of education obviously is done here, and a number of folks come to this country for that. I'm not saying we're trying to attract specifically international, just saying in terms that this is a national game that we are playing relative to attracting and retaining the students, the faculty and staff to these spaces. So as we go through this, there's a lot of assessment and just understanding how can we be the best. Our goal is to be a top 100 school. So we know we have work to do, and these are ways in which we can make improvements to make that change. So all of that was about classroom utilization. So we're looking at our utilization, and one of the challenges we have now, we are in excess of 75% utilization on our classrooms, which is extremely high. So on a typical day, we're exceeding an 8-hour day on the schedule, and we're doing 12, sometimes 16-hour schedules in terms of being able to meet all of our classroom demand needs for the curriculum that we're teaching. A standard would be somewhere in the 70% max, and so we're in excess of that. So we know so what that is telling us is we've got high capacity, or excuse me, high utilization. So we're being very efficient with the space that we have, but we're actually doing it to our own detriment because we're not allowing for room for greater exploration in the labs and sciences. And we're also not giving room in terms of the choice and diversity of choice for the students. It's very scripted in terms of where they can fit in. So we see it as a problem, and we need to make a pivot and a shift on that. One of the ways we also need to make a shift and a pivot is actually in the way we're teaching. So when we look at our defined needs of this 35,000 square feet, a lot of that actually is in a shift in our pedagogy and the way we're teaching. Currently, our classroom offerings, if you will, in terms of where our faculty is teaching the students, we are in a 90% didactic environment, meaning that the faculty is standing in front of the students and they are dictating to them the subject matter. That is not a current pedagogy in the higher education market, if you will, if you want to look at it kind of in a business sense. Really, it's more what we call an active or engaged learning, which is more small group learning, breakout sessions where you're in a whole group and then you're coming back apart. Probably stuff we're familiar seeing in a work environment or other areas. So that's a big pivot for us. And that has spatial implications, which is what is driving some of these numbers. We're not necessarily saying we need 35,000 square feet because we're growing 10,000 students on campus. We're looking to have relatively the same student population size, but be able to teach them in these new pedagogies that are current in the marketplace. So that's what's driving some of this new teaching space. The other thing you're seeing here in our defined needs is we have 600 new residential beds. This is new beds that we need to our inventory. We are currently overstacked, if you will, with students wanting to be on our campus and living in our dorms. They want our services, from security, laundry, the meal plans, the diversity of housing options that they have. They want to be within, quote unquote, the Loyola network. And that's a request that we're hearing quite frequently. And right now we have such a high demand, we're having to push juniors and seniors out of our housing inventory out into the market. And this is an area where we feel we need to provide better assets, better resources for our students that want to come to our campus and stay on our campus into those latter years of their educational career. So that's a big piece. We also have some buildings on campus that are old. Obviously, if you've been around campus anytime in the past 2 months, you've seen us banging away on Centennial Hall, which is now no longer standing. That's one of our buildings that was past its prime useful life from a mechanical, engineering, plumbing perspective. It just didn't meet the needs, too costly for us to renovate in place. So that was a demolition. We have some other buildings of this same issue. One of those being Flanner Hall, which is a science building. It's really too small of a building to meet the modern sciences. And modern sciences doesn't necessarily mean we're doing something different. We're still doing work at the bench, but from a health, an equity, and quality of life standpoint, we need to actually improve the mechanical, air circulation, those types of things. So that's where we start looking at some of these buildings saying they need to be replaced, Flanner being one of those. So we know we need some growth there. We also know the sciences are growing. STEM is a huge thing. Experimentation, that's where the growth is. And that's where we need to have more space accommodating for teaching labs, as well as for investigator research at the same time. So quite a bit of growth in science that we're looking at. We also need to look at, while our students are living here, how are they staying well? Part of that is really related to recreation and wellness. So we are very short on that. For a school our size, we should have 14 acres of recreational fields. You know, and I think Jennifer made the comment, we're 58.5 acres kind of in the core of our campus. So that is a huge portion of our campus to say we're going to make rec fields, or to say that's a huge part of the community that we need to, quote unquote, acquire to make rec fields. That's not a reality. We know that can't be the case. We're an urban campus and an urban environment. We need to make do with what we can. So some of these national trends, national standards, we have to Loyolaize them, if you will, to accommodate what we've got to fit the community. But it's still a target and a number where we are having to diminish the program offerings that we have because we just don't have the space to accommodate. So we know that's something we need to work on. As we talk about attracting and retaining, a welcome center is a key element to that. Currently, it's in a building along the lake, but it's not setting up the environment of understanding what our campus has to offer, because it's taking them to the periphery of it. We want to really get that to the core of our campus, be very direct in there, and really capture those. So that's something we know we need to work on. Student gathering spaces, open community spaces, if you will, for contemplation. As I was saying before, we are really good at using our space. But when we're really good at using our space, we look at space that isn't being used every second and we say, hey, how can we find a way to make that be used better? We know that's become an issue, and we need to find some of that space just to allow people to decompress, right? Whether that's the staff working there having space, whether that's the community around the edges of the campus having that space, or the students or faculty, we know that's something we need to improve upon. Certainly any work that we're doing moving forward, we want to keep with the ethos that we've been developing over the past 10 years and be a leader in sustainability and energy. Not only is that good for us, we know that's excellent for the environment. We also think it's a great resource in terms of teaching and showing the community examples of how to grow smart, where maybe there's something bigger in terms of square footage, but in reality, it's actually less consumption of raw materials or energy or carbon. So those are high on our list as we start thinking of that. We don't want to divert from where we've been. And then obviously mobility, that has multiple meanings depending on what group we're in. We really mean this in the broad sense. Obviously, we're concerned with our students on campus. We've all experienced them, or you could be a student on this call. We're all guilty of it. Those little devices in our hands with everybody always reaching out to us. We always want to be on it. But at times it's distracting when that road called Sheridan is in the way. So we know we have some challenges. We want to look at ways of improving that. Mobility by foot is really what we want to promote, but we want to do it in a safe and constructive way that's inviting to everybody and inclusive to everybody. So that's really high on our list. So in totality, that's where we're looking at. Those are the frameworks of where we are. We don't have, if you will, any set plan to say a project is going to be built here. We're really looking at opportunities within our existing holdings, if you will, quote unquote holdings, our real estate, within our rights to solve these challenges as they're presented here. We certainly have other property that I know folks on this call in the community is aware of that we own. Some of those are, if you will, outside of our current rights to develop within our obligations. And what we're talking about here, we're really looking to solve within our core campus. We feel we have the ability to do that. We're just looking at repositioning some assets in order to do that, which we know is a little bit more work on our side, but we believe that that's actually a better stewardship of the assets we have and really puts us in the position of where we've been since we got here in the 1900s and establishing the university and building it within the community. So that's where we are. And again, just pointing out on the website, there's a number of stuff in here. I just went through where our analysis is, the approach is in here. And I know we're going to get into some other exercise, but we have links in here in terms of how to engage and put some comments in here. So I know Jennifer and Summer were talking about engagement and questions. There are opportunities within here as well with an email feedback loop. So if something isn't answered tonight, we have multiple ways for you all to connect with us beyond just Jennifer always being available with her team, which they are. If you want a different media to do that, we've got that available as well. So that's what I've got there. Jennifer, toss it back over to you.
Thank you, Patrick. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of information. So we do want to invite people, if you have questions specific to what Patrick has said, please drop them in the chat. We're monitoring the chat. We'll try to answer them during this meeting. If there's so many questions we can't get to them, we will put them on the frequently asked questions. So you will have access to those answers. We'll try to answer every question or react to every comment that comes up. So Patrick shared a lot of data. That's really where we're at this point. We are at the point of we have data. We know what the university needs. We know where our land is. As he said, we think 90% of everything that Loyola is going to need to do is going to be on the existing campus and within the existing zoning plan development that we asked the community for permission for and the city council for permission for 10 years ago. So we may or may not need to come back and do zoning changes, but you will be the first to know if we do. And as each project comes up, we will keep this process going, right? There will still be community meetings for every new building that's going to be built so that you can look at the architecture of the building, the color of the brick, the height, the traffic, the parking, all of those things. We're not at that phase of planning yet. We are really just kicking off this process to begin to hear, so that you can hear what we're needing to do and so that you can tell us what the needs of the community are. There's still time to join the Menti. We're going to come back and use it. Only about half of the people who are on the call have joined the Menti. That's okay, but it just means when we're looking at the word cloud and other things, that's only representative of about half the people. I just want to point out, we have one person who said regarding sustainability, I would very much like to see Loyola take the lead for sustainable permeable alleys. Loyola is a fantastic resource and an anchor for the Edgewater community. Thank you very much for saying that. I don't know if I'm supposed to say who said it, but I appreciate that. And I think truly in a future meeting, we should probably have a meeting that's devoted just to Loyola's commitment to carbon neutrality, because it is so huge. It's overwhelming at times. And Loyola is the leader in Illinois. And we're at the point now, honestly, I'm not the expert on this, but we're at the point now where what we need from the city is for them to create new regulations to make it possible to do the cutting edge things that Loyola would like to do. We're like at the end of what's already been done before, and now we want to push the envelope even further. So thank you for that comment. Ooh. Somebody said Loyola's been trying to get the city to close Sheridan for a long time. Where do you stand on that at this point? I assume you're talking about West Sheridan Road. I don't know that we've ever been trying to get the city to do it, but it has come up as a recommendation in multiple transportation studies over the last 25 years. Transportation engineers always come with a recommendation to decrease traffic on West Sheridan Road. The city's never supportive of it. So you may see it in future transportation studies. It may or may not become an issue. It's not something I would say Loyola is driving at this point, but we would like to hear feedback from the community, and we'll tell you how you can tell us what you think about Sheridan Road when we get to that interactive website. There's a comment on when will Piper Hall be open again to the community, and what is the plan for Piper Hall in the future? I'm sorry, whoever answered that question, I can't answer it right now, but this is an example of something we can easily find out the answer to and get back to you. Okay, we're going to keep collecting questions. I'm going to move on. Summer, let me know if you see anything pops up that we should answer, or you can jump in and say it at any time.
I just put something in the chat. See if it's a question about Centennial Forum.
Oh, Centennial Forum Student Union. That is the building that is currently being demolished on the southeast corner of Loyola Avenue and Sheridan Road. That building has been in the process of being demolished for years now, because it used to be the home of our student union. A new student union opened in 2014, and all those operations have moved in, but there were still some things hanging on: dining services, campus reservations. That building was still needed for some office space until, like I said, little by little, those folks have been able to move into other office space. And that building was fully decommissioned, cut off from all city utilities last winter, and it's being torn down right now. All I know at this point is in the future, it is going to be a building. It is likely to be an academic building, but I'm not aware that anything has been designed at this point. There's nothing to share with anybody. I have not seen anything. All I know is that's a site for a future academic building. As Patrick said, we need buildings for sciences. We need laboratory space. We need nursing. We need public health. Patrick, jump in if I missed anything. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if that'll all happen in that new site. Stay tuned.
Yeah, there's a lot there, right? It is a development site. You're accurate on that. I would just say it would probably be let's say a university building. I don't know if it would be quote unquote 100% academic, because again, with our goal of achieving our needs within our existing PD, that means we have to move some stuff around. So there may be some offices that come to the edge, and we want to make sure we've got academics or other elements kind of core and central to where they are. So it certainly will be a university building. I know we would not be looking to exceed the height limitation. That site itself is at 90 feet. So we'd be building within the rights that we have there for whatever we do look to develop. But at this point, as Jennifer said, I don't have a specific program identified. We have 6 or 7 needs. Every site is being evaluated for highest best use to where our needs are.
Patrick, I'm going to ask you another question just because it's fun. We're going to move on. But somebody asked if you've ever considered building an overpass across Sheridan Road at Winthrop and Kenmore.
Oh, that comes up probably every 3 months in
Mhm.
conversation. And it has been something we have. I wouldn't say we've ever really, I'm going to say serious. And when I say serious, what I infer by that is to say retain a architectural engineering firm to do concepts or schematics. We've never gone to that distance. It's always basically been a feasibility conversation. And I will tell you that the number one challenge we have with that is we are not a vertical campus in the way we are stacked. Like, let's say if we were downtown in the Loop, having a vertical cross would be far more conducive to the way the buildings are being used. So the number one challenge we have is how to get people up onto that.
Mhm.
As I said before, everyone likes to be on their device and they want to get there quickly. It's a lot easier, as scary as it sounds, to stumble over a curb and walk out in oncoming traffic than it is to stumble up a set of stairs or
Yeah.
do a long ramp. So that's one of the challenges we've had with this is we really would need some buildings that have high activity at the third floor and above to really validate that. So it is something we've looked at, just the feasibility of that relative to our existing assets just hasn't come to light.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Exactly. CDOT has explained it to me over the years as it makes sense to connect a third floor to a third floor, but to go from the sidewalk up a flight of stairs to cross and then down a flight of stairs, it just doesn't often work. It works on Lakeshore Drive. It works in Las Vegas, but it doesn't really work many other places. So it's never been advisable. And then the last comment I'm going to respond to is somebody who says, that why is Rogers Park always the last to know about Loyola's plans? And all I can say is you're not. Like this is, I can't speak to always, but this plan, this is the earliest we've ever been in front of the community. So there are some questions asking for specific, what are you going to put on this lot? What are you going to put on this street? And we're not here to answer those today. Because honestly, we know what we need to build. We don't know where we're going to put it. We don't know what makes sense in terms of priority. We're not going to try to fight against a community that doesn't want something when we have 9 other priorities to take care of. So we really want to hear from you first in order to help us set, to take that into account in determining the priorities. This phase of the planning is the earliest we've ever been in front of the community in these large numbers. So I'm sorry if you feel like you're the last to know about plans, but we're telling you everything that we know at this point. And I guess we're asking you to trust us. So with that, I'm going to ask you to, just for fun, go back to your Mentimeter. We're going to play another game. I'm going to share my screen again. Oh, there's one other thing that I want to tell you. We are lucky enough to have the chair of the history department of Loyola on this call, who corrected my math and told me that in actuality in 1870, Loyola University was operating on Roosevelt Road, where St. Ignatius High School is right now. And it wasn't until 1909 that the Jesuits started building the Rogers Park campus. So when this picture was taken, the Jesuits had only been working on the Rogers Park campus with those first 2 buildings for 28 years. And I think I had said 60 years. So thank you, Dr. Hunt, for correcting me. I was not intending to give misinformation. Still a really long time though. I love looking at these old pictures. So the next thing we're going to put in front of you here is this. If your neighborhood were a dog, what kind of dog would it be? And this, I know most people in Edgewater and Rogers Park rescue shelter pets, but for the purposes of this exercise, I looked up what are the top dogs in Chicago, top breeds of dogs in Chicago. And these are the top 5 breeds of dogs in urban areas. And this is asking you to think creatively about the characteristics of your neighborhood and the characteristics of dogs that you know, and to just have some fun with it. How would you describe your neighborhood? And if you are participating, I'm going to ask you maybe one person from Rogers Park or 2 people from Rogers Park, 2 people from Edgewater. If you're willing to describe to everybody on the meeting why you chose what you chose, I would really like to hear from you because there's some psychosocial information that you're telling us about your neighborhood when you choose Golden Retriever, German Shepherd. and it helps us get some insight into what's going on. So if you want to, Summer, I can't see the chat right now because I'm screen sharing, but if somebody tells you that they're willing to share, would you unmute them and let them share with us? Tell us their name. We are all educators and we will call on you.
I'm watching the chat like a hawk.
Okay, but nobody wants to share, that's okay. It's a fun exercise. I'll tell you, I lived in Rogers Park. I have a condo in North Rogers Park on Fargo. I lived there for 18 years, and I would probably describe my area of Rogers Park as a Yorkshire Terrier, because it can be aggressive at times, but it's also super cuddly. And I love all of my neighbors, and I love Jarvis Square, which is the closest business district to where I live. I feel like as a Yorkshire Terrier, we like to go outside and go for walks. So my part of Rogers Park, I would describe as a Yorkshire Terrier. But this is really interesting. I don't know who's from Edgewater and who's from Rogers Park and if there's any overlap. But the Bulldog is the winner. I'm curious to know why. Okay, we're going to do another one.
Tom said what? No boxer on the list?
Someone said no boxer.
Yeah.
Boxer and Bulldog. Boxer is one of the top 10 dogs in Chicago. But I just kind of merged it with Bulldog to keep the number on our screen to a more manageable number. I'm sorry. Okay, let's do another one. Here we go. This is thinking about Loyola. When you think about Loyola University, what type of shoe is Loyola University? And if you'd be willing to give us your thinking in the chat, we would love to see it. We got one for everything. Summer, when we practiced this meeting yesterday, you chose that Loyola was a casual retro sneaker. Would you be willing to share your thinking on that, since it is the #1 by a lot? And it's also what we chose.
Yeah,
it was also what I chose.
I assure. My reason for selecting casual retro sneaker is because I think Loyola has somewhat of a pragmatic, semi-laid back quality about it. And that was my feeling about casual retro sneaker. But we're kind of classic, right? We move forward, but we still remain quintessentially who we are.
I agree. And I think it's interesting that when we practiced it, casual retro sneaker was the winner. And when we go to the broad community, casual retro sneaker is also the winner. So we're not as different as you might think in our understanding of our neighborhood. And I'm not at all surprised that nobody chose stiletto. I'm grateful for that. Okay, moving on to a slightly more serious question, and the last question of the night. Let me go to the slide. What is one thing you want Loyola to know about your neighborhood? You can take a couple of minutes on this one because you can write up to 200 words. These will be recorded. They will never be forgotten. They will be posted, and they will be kept in mind as we think about future planning.
And Jennifer, while people are writing down, I do see a question there. There was a question, is there plans to tear down Mertz? The answer is no. That is a high value, high-rise residential tower for us. We actually just completed an assessment of its facade, and there's some repairs but it's in good shape. Despite what it may look like, it actually is in very sound shape there. So there's no immediate plans or thoughts for that building to go anywhere.
Okay. While people may be writing their one thing they want Loyola to know about their neighborhood, I want to let you know what's going to happen next. At the end of this, when I get off of this screen, I'm going to share with you what's called a social pinpoint site. And that is a website, a micro website specifically dedicated to this community outreach and community planning process. I actually want to show it to you, but I don't want to stop people from filling in the Menti. I think if I stop sharing the screen, you can still keep filling it in. So I'm going to do that. And instead, I'm going to try to share the social pinpoint site. There we go. So keep filling in your answers on the one thing you want Loyola to know about, because we really do want to keep those, collect those, and you can share them in lots of different ways. I'm going to show you one right now. This is the site. It's going to be emailed out to everyone who registered for this meeting. It's going to be sent out in Loyola's electronic newsletter, which many of you already receive. It's going to be on our social media, and we're going to ask all of our community partners to share it out as well. Oh, I didn't mention, we have met 3 times in December and January with some small focus groups of community partners and community organizations that we've worked with for a long time to practice this run through for Patrick to introduce where Loyola stands in the campus plan. And we have met with the elected officials who represent this campus, includes the 48th Ward, the 49th Ward, the state representative and the state senator. We've met with them 3 times since January or since December. So they are completely up to speed on this and are completely aware that we have launched this community process. So this moving forward has had a little bit of outreach to smaller groups in the past. I just didn't share that. This microsite says Loyola Lakeshore Campus Plan. It gives a little background. It has a timeline over here on the right, as you can see. We're currently in the neighborhood outreach phase, and we're going to stay there until early fall, because what we're going to be doing, if you keep scrolling down, is there's an interactive map and there's a survey. We would love for you, for everybody in your family, for everybody on your block, for everybody in your church, your school, everybody that you know, to participate in this interactive map and this community survey over the next 8 weeks. We'll take lots of opportunities to blast it out to you and to let you know kind of how the progress is. The community survey is also going to be available in different languages in paper form at a few locations throughout the neighborhood. I can't tell you exactly what they are because I'm still waiting on approval for those drop boxes, but we will be sharing that on this website as well as in email and social media. So if you'd rather take the survey in paper form, or if you know someone who wants to take the survey in another language, those will be available for people to just drop them in a box and we'll collect them. The interactive website looks like this. Everything that you see in yellow is part of Loyola University's campus. Everything outlined in yellow is part of Loyola University's campus, and everything could be potentially redeveloped into something new. That's not saying we're planning to do that, but this is the area that we're talking about building over the next 10 years. We're not actively looking to acquire more property. If more property becomes available for sale, of course, Loyola is going to consider purchasing it. But the question of acquisitions always comes up. Are you targeting certain buildings? And that's a difficult question to answer, but in my 23 years at Loyola, I can't say that any property has ever been targeted. It is really, well, I shouldn't say that. There have been attempts. I can't say that Loyola has ever been successful in targeting any buildings. We have attempted to buy buildings and the owners have said, bug off, we're not interested. But as Loyola does buy property, it's usually because the property goes on the market for sale, somebody retires, somebody dies, somebody moves out of state, and they reach out to Loyola before they put it on the open market, and that's how we buy more property. But we are not actively targeting any property for purchase within this plan. That's not to say nothing new will ever be acquired. On this interactive map, just a couple of seconds, this is what it looks like. You can zoom in to any place you want. You can say that the corner of Lakewood and Arthur, click my concern, and create a comment there. Why is it not working? Maybe because it's a screen share. But if you click my concern or my idea, you can drop a pin anywhere on this map. If you're really patient, you can go all the way down to the south side and tell us what you think down there. But we want to hear what you think. We want to hear what you think of Loyola. And we also want to hear what are the issues in the neighborhood that Loyola might be able to help with, or that Loyola's planning might be able to help with. Are there traffic issues? Are there congestion issues? Are there parking issues? Loyola can't solve all of the problems of the city, but as an anchor institution, we can be an advocate for those issues. So please feel free to drop something, drop a pin and give a comment, even if it's not, especially if it's not within the yellow area, because those are already Loyola properties. We want to hear from you on those. I'm going to go back. If you click on community survey, it takes you to a simple Survey Monkey. This should be pretty easy for anyone who's ever done Survey Monkey. And it asks you, the first thing is rank these areas of a successful community in order of importance from 1 to 10. We really would appreciate your feedback on this because it helps us to know what the community's priorities are. Like I said, I think Summer, can you drop this link in the chat right now? But don't worry if you can't grab it. We're going to send it out to you tomorrow.
I did already.
And I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see the chat again. And Summer, Patrick, if there's anything else you guys want to add, other than that, we can end this meeting promptly at 7 o'clock. And if anybody wants to stay on for specific questions that didn't get answered, I will stay on and try to answer those questions for you.
I just want to say I working in the background, I wasn't able to know if all of the translation services and everything was working, but I hope that it was. If for some reason it wasn't, please let me know in the chat. We'll be queuing this up for our August 6th version, so we're kind of working out the bugs.
Thank you all for attending this meeting. I'm sorry, Summer, I didn't mean to step on you.
No, that's fine.
Thank you all very much for attending this meeting. This meeting will be repeated 2 weeks from tonight, same time, same channel. You're all welcome to come back again or get your other members of your household to jump in or help us to spread the word. Again, the Zoom platform allows us to do the kickoff meeting twice. So hopefully we can reach even more people. We really appreciate it. We will be contacting you for more information, and we really do want to hear your feedback as we go forward. Thank you very much. And I'm going to